Hello, everybody. And welcome to another adventure in history. Vern, you are right on time, my friend. And I hope that you're having a good one, too. How's the new job treating you? You doing all right? Feeling okay? Getting your tech legs, if you will? It's good to see you, man. Really good to see you. And hello to everybody else as well. Welcome to the show. This is Adventures in History, where we talk about history. Hey, Sci-Fi, good to see you. We talk about history, we make fun out of history, and we make fun of history sometimes. But we hang around and have a good time and crack jokes and go off on tangents and just generally enjoy each other's company. And I hope that you're having a great day. Last couple of days have been pretty long. We had Monday and Tuesday off for what we are calling fall break. You don't know anything, but it's okay. I'm Spartacus. Sci-Fi.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. Sci-Fi, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Hope you're having a good one. You had a really big test not too long ago. How did that turn out? Or is the really big test like very, very soon? Last time I think I talked to you about that, it was either imminent or coming up very soon. That was sort of like the big deal test. I apologize for not remembering exactly when it was. Hey, Shiggy, how's it going? Really big test is in a week and a half. Okay, so it's coming. I wish you the absolute best on that. I know that you've been studying really hard. And I hope that it goes swimmingly well. Hey, Shiggy, though. Coming soon to a Roman near you. 25, 27. Oh, it's multiple days. Ugh, that sounds horrible. Yeah, I remember those days. Oh, it's like, sit down and do your comprehensive exams, and then turn right back around like 2 days later and do your oral defense for your thesis. That stuff is just no Gouda. The trick is just not study. I don't know if I can completely throw in with that, Shiggy. I worry that the learning by osmosis, by putting the book under the pillow, is not quite an effective tool. And I also don't know if we have perfected the I know Kung Fu method of learning.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. Tuna.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm
All of the Spartaci.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
And for Tuna, we will also throw up the White Tree of Gondor. Thank you so much, Tuna. I hope you have a good one, man. Hope you're having a good one, too. We have a Twitch baby, historically speaking. What shall we name our Twitch baby? Tuna, I will defer and let you pick the Twitch baby name. And then I'll try to remember the Twitch baby. 25, a 3-hour reading test. 26, a 3-hour listening test. 27th is a speaking test. Good gracious. Sci-Fi, that sounds arduous. As long as your subject of interest is niche enough, everyone will believe you. Trust me, you studied math. Yeah, you can start talking about the paradoxes and the theorems and the, you know, I'm serving this one with Beckett's triad here, and we might switch over once we get past the derivative stage to Harper's theorem, and you can just kind of make up whatever you want, and everybody's like, who's this guy and how much math does he know? Like, I didn't even know that was the thing. Have you ever heard of that? It's less scary if it's just school, but this is also job. Yeah. Ooh, better score, better pay. You're still at work, Longinus. Oh yeah, okay, so we shall be the Twitch baby spear of destiny. Oh, our child shall rule everything, as long as he doesn't get kidnapped by Hitler, right? Oh, goodness. goodness gracious. Tuna, that's great. All right. Yeah, so Steve Sketches. Are you not entertained? Is that not why you are here? Steve, thank you so much, man, for that raid. I hope that the dungeon was going better. I know that it was not going necessarily the best. The last thing that I saw was Penn going paranoid. And then I had to kind of bounce for stream-related materials. If you use the McInnes factor, the equation balances. Oh yeah, certainly, Vern. It all levels out. For those of you that do not know Steve Sketches, if you don't know who Steve Sketches is, I'm not sure why. You should go follow Steve Sketches. He's a great dude. He's a good friend, and he's a smart guy, and he helps people learn how to do artwork. Pin going paranoid sucked really bad. He ate his camp move and your camp points. Aww. Vern with the bits. Thank you, Vern. But we destroyed the Prophet and his precious benches. I also don't know how I'm supposed to study when my adorable cat keeps laying her head in your arm to nap. You can try to explain to the cat that you don't have time to study, but you do it in Thai. Well, I'm glad that you defeated the sonorous Prophet and all of his evil pews. But it does suck that eating up all of your camp points and your camp move and stuff, that's no good. You'll have to put him, it was at the sanatorium where you have to get put if you go paranoid. Little more than shave and haircut. Yeah, right. So for those of you that do not know, my name is Shane. I'm a teacher here at college. I specialize in history and sociology and archaeology and mythology and all of those things that people sort of like to consider stuffy and old. I really think is super interesting. So the show here is Adventures in History, and we talk about historical stuff. And tonight our topic is actually Rome. We do this stuff. Oh, fulminating prophet. Oh, I'm sorry. The gibbering prophet is next. Oh. We've gone from sonorous to fulminating to gibbering. I don't even know where you would go from there. The next one, just never mind. I don't want to even say that. It was a horrible bad joke. The frothing prophet. Yeah, Vern says that I'm a Time Lord because I like old history stuff and I know a lot of weird facts. But the show is Adventures in History. We talk about stuff. We have a good time. We goof off. We're talking about Rome tonight, which is on the other side over here. The way that we cover stuff in history here is basically by breaking it down into centuries, because trying to cover history chronologically speaking is really tough to do. If you don't give yourself enough time, you don't really have a lot of narrative that you can give. So we are covering basically the history of the world, but we're doing it by centuries. And we are currently in what is called the 3rd century. This is the year 200 to the year 300. And we do this regionally focused. So like last week, we were talking about Persia, the rise of the Sassanid Empire. Week before that, we were talking about India and Central Asia. Week before that, we were talking about China. Dun dun dun, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun. Thunder Jim, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure, my friend. Hope you're having a great day. Feel free, everybody that's here, to participate at whatever level you feel interested. You can throw chat in the wall. You can put bad jokes in. You can try to throw us off on tangents. Tangents are super welcome. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask those. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I mean, I guess there is a dumb question, because now people are going to be like, oh, he doesn't think there's a dumb question. I'll come up with a dumb question. You know what I mean, though. Like, if you have a legitimate question, go ahead and ask it. It's not going to hurt anybody's feelings. So we've talked about Southeast Asia this cycle, and Japan and Korea this cycle, and we're going to wrap up here. This is actually the end of what is Phase 7, and we are going to talk about what happens to Rome in the 3rd century. And the answer is lots of not so good stuff. To kind of spill the beans a little bit early for anybody that might be deliberating whether or not they're going to hang around. Everybody starts getting assassinated in this century, and Rome gets really stabby, and most of the people don't make it out alive. To be fair, it's not like they don't deserve it. Well, some of them do, and some of them don't. That's the thing about the crisis of the 3rd century. Assassination, that's it, I'm out. Forget it, who cares about the assassin stuff? I prefer calm governance, where we don't have good historical records, so that all we know is things were going peachy. Who's to say? Well, if history speaks truth, a lot of these people kind of had it coming. Not me. All right, so let us start. And we're going to start, as always, at the beginning, because that's the good place to start. And we're going to talk about the Severan dynasty. And this is the current ruling dynasty of Rome. If I could type, Severan dynasty. And the emperor at the time that starts it off is a guy named Septimius Severus. Severus. Like Severus Snape. And that doesn't fit. Of course it doesn't. So, boom, now it fits. Magical. So, Severan dynasty of Rome. Septimius Severus is the emperor. And, this is Septimius Severus. I really absolutely love this particular piece of art here for Septimius. First off, that's a pretty cool looking dude. He's got the nice hair. He's got a pretty respectable beard here. Nice looking face. But check out this really cool toga that he's wearing. That is made out of clear stone, or semi-translucent stone. And you can kind of see through it. No, he's not wearing a trash bag, Shiggy. He's not the slumming emperor. This is a crystal. Looks like he's got some rope burns on his neck. That's probably where his head fell off at one point and they put it back on. Unfortunately, a lot of these statues get broken over time, and he probably lost his head and somebody had to help him find it. So yeah, that's Septimius Severus. He had taken over at the end of a period of time that was called the Year of 5 Emperors, which by itself sounds pretty friggin' horrible, right? We went through 5 emperors in 1 year, and Septimius Severus was the one that basically killed all the other guys and managed to take over, and he is going to be the ruling emperor when we start our 3rd century. Now, he is going to have quite a few problems. Most of his problems are with other people in Rome. Most notably, he does not get along very well with the Senate. And the Senate at this point was mostly kind of an advisory board, but they still had quite a bit of political power, and most especially, they had a ton of money. And with money, you can hire people to do stuff like kill people, right? And Romans are not above paying hitmen. They do it all the time. So this problem with the Senate is a pretty big issue. But more specifically, he's having problems along his borders. And if we are looking at Rome at this time, if you look at the map here that I have pulled up down in the corner, Rome basically controlled all of that. And especially this northern border that runs sort of roughly right here down what is the Rhine River, and then the border right through here, which is the Danube River, was being constantly attacked. And the people that are doing this attacking are various types of Germanic tribes, especially one group called the Alemanni, who had been particularly damaging back for almost going on 60 or so years by this point. These particular bands of Germanic barbarians had been really damaging. What else would you use money for, right? You know, living a nice life or retiring to a villa in the countryside? Heck no, let's kill some folk. 'Cause, you know, what else? The original Halloween ghost. Yeah, he's like nearly headless Sept. That doesn't quite work, though. Sept just means 7. Septimius Severus. Maybe his head got severed? There's the joke. Yeah, maybe. I think it works. Anyway, so there are lots of problems going on along the borders here, and this is keeping Septimius Severus very, very busy. And he's having to spend a lot of time outside of Rome because this border threat is becoming fairly constant. And he is going to have to spend all this time out here because the morale of the troops is wearing down. When you are in constant warfare in the ancient world, you need hope. Well, I mean, I guess when you're in war in any particular time, hope is a good thing to have. But what better way to instill some backbone and some hope into your troops is for the emperor himself to come hang out and be on the battlefield and lead the army directly. We're being visited by a puppy. Oh, do you want to come and see me? All right, let's see the puppy. Come here. Come here. Come on. There's the puppy. Hello. Hey. Hello, I see you. What are you doing? You just want me to scratch your ears? Oh my goodness. That is the good stuff. Oh yes, the ear scratches, and she likes to have her neck scratched too. Like right here. Oh yes, like under the collar. Oh my good gracious. Oh, that's all the good stuff. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, thank you for the sugars. You're so sweet. And you just want me to keep scratching your ears? So I guess we might just do this for the rest of the stream. I might just scratch the puppy ears for the rest of the stream. You big mutt. You're being so sweet. You surely don't want anything. What, do you want something? What do you want? Huh? What do you want? What? Walks off. Such a mess. Such a mess. Aleman is German and Spanish. There we go. Love and attention. Yeah, we just want the love and the attention. Just look at me. Give me everything that I want. Scratch my ears. Scratch my neck. And we'll throw the puppy emote in the chat, right? So things are going pretty bad, and Septimius Severus is having to spend a lot of time out here. And Britain, the region up here, is actually going to start proving to be quite troublesome. There are several tribes, especially up here in the north, that are going to be really, really troublesome. And unfortunately for Septimius Severus, he is going to lead an army over into Britain, and in 211, he is going to die. He dies from what appear to be natural causes. He was not assassinated. She wants her own stream. Yeah, that would... I'm sure she does. She would love all of the permanent attention. And if you all could give her... I won't say it out loud because she could probably hear me. But if you all would give her TREATS's, she would probably end up like this big around. She probably would also end up with more followers and subs than I do, but that's okay. I love you all. All the puppers, all the times, right? Just put a little GoPro on her and just let her run around the house. You probably just end up seeing like her back legs all the time because she's always trying to like itch her butt or, you know, lick her stomach or whatever. Probably not good Twitch content. The otter stream has tons of followers. I have watched the otter stream. I'm not going to lie. Otters are adorable, and they deserve all of the followers that they could get. I can't remember what the actual what the actual thing is, but I know that there's an otter thing. So, all right. So Septimius Severus dies, but the Severan dynasty is going to continue, and he is going to be followed by his two sons. And this is just, it's a weird situation here. Literally just otter swimming and you're glued to it. Are we teaching a real class right now? No, Tropical Geek, we are not. We're just kind of hanging out. And, I mean, this isn't for a grade, and I don't take, you know, attendance or anything. My shtick is just, we just hang out and we talk about history. So, I mean, you're welcome to ask whatever questions you want or throw goofy comments into the chat or, just kind of hang out and be chill. Your thing. We enjoy bad puns. We enjoy dad jokes. Any sort of pop cultural reference that you have that you feel like you can just get in there. Thank goodness there are no tests. Yeah, because, everybody remembers all those people that I've mentioned in stream before. Like everybody remembers like Asher Urbalit and remembers exactly what he did. And, they remember Muatali and all those people that... yeah, you're waiting for the part when Asterisk and Obelisk start fighting with the Robins. That's going to be around this time, actually. The Gauls had already been pretty big of a deal. They were sort of part of the Roman world already to a certain extent. But when all these barbarians start showing up, the barbarians all over the place are going to be a bit of a mess. But yeah. If you want to, you can roll back and when the Gauls first showed up, and when the Gauls were really, really, really a big threat to the Romans. That was back in the 400s and 300s BC or BCE, however you'd prefer to call it. But the good thing is, if you want to go find all of those, you can go roll back through the VODs, because I try to save every VOD. So theoretically, everything should be back in the VODs if you want to go catch that stream. And I know it's not quite the same watching the VOD as it is to hang out and be able to goof off and interact and stuff like that. For the sake of doing your duty, are you aware of all of the other academic streamers on Twitch? Yes, I am aware of many of the other academic streamers on Twitch. I am part of a group called the Knowledge Fellowship, who is a collected group of Twitch educational streamers. And I was just lucky enough to get inducted into the group last week. Yeah. So I had applied a couple of weeks prior. So are you telling him to go back in time? TKF is great, and some of those people show up in chat sometimes, and some people show up to lurk sometimes. We might have, TKF people hanging around in the chat now. Who knows? Who knows? I just hope everybody has a good time, right? That's the goal. Oh, you're one of those people. Cool. Evo lurks a lot. Hey, there's no worries with that. If you want to show up and just announce that you're lurking, you can always hit the lurk command. And have all of that fun little stuff if you want to, if you want to. Or you could just be very, very quiet. I do like to try to say hello to everybody. I think that the least I can do is say hey to everybody if you come in. So hey, everybody. Anyway, so Septimius Severus dies. And he had sort of already... He was a smart enough guy to understand that the Roman world was troublesome. Right? That's an easy way of saying it. And prior to his death, he had raised his two sons to co-emperor status. Yes, it doesn't work now. That was partially written by our very own stream viewers. Words are hard. Words and things and partially written by some of our very own streamers. And I sort of tweaked it just a little bit, but yeah. So Septimius Severus knew he was fighting a lot. Fighting in the ancient world is a rough business. We don't have medicine back then like we have now. You could die from infection a lot harder back then or a lot easier back then than you can now. They don't have ancient Neosporin, right? So he had raised his two sons to the position of power, and when Septimius Severus dies, his two sons are supposed to take over as co-emperors. Now, this idea itself had been done before. There had been several examples of Roman emperors having co-emperors, so this was not uncharted territory. The issue here is that these are brothers. And Caracalla and Gita are not necessarily the best of friends. So again, here's Septimius Severus. Here is Caracalla. Again, they're both his sons, but they're not necessarily going to be best friends. So here's Caracalla. He is the elder brother. And here is Gita, who is the younger brother. You can tell that he's the younger one because he doesn't have a beard yet. Can't grow a beard. Look, I've even got a scruffy little beard. All right, so Caracalla and Gita are supposed to be co-emperors, and they're supposed to get along. Here's the deal, though. The real issue is not that Rome has not had two emperors. The real issue is that Caracalla wants to be sole emperor, and they're supposed to get along. Right. They didn't look that good. The sculptors didn't make them. Sculptors made them look handsome. Yes, they teach clay at Roman summer camps. Right, they're ruggedly handsome. I could see that. So, what's really going to happen here is that their mom is one of the Augusti. She's named Julia. She is from the old family of Julius Caesar and Augustus. So she's got a really long, storied political history. And she's going to be the one that sort of tries to keep them away from each other. You got to keep them separated, right? Because that's the only way that it works. So her name, by the way, is Julia Domna. And she becomes so important that there are even some Roman coins that show her, the mom of the emperors, on the coins. I realize now that I should have found a photo of one of those and shared it, because that's sort of my thing. I'm supposed to share photos when I can. I apologize for being a dum-dum and not going to get one of those pictures. Like Julia Augusta. There we go. Right. Herstory, indeed. So Julia Domina tries to keep them separate and tries to make it work, and it lasts for about a year. And Caracalla is just absolutely dead set on being the emperor. So he decides, I'm going to get my brother killed. And the reason that he is feeling a little bit of pressure is because he was not doing so great in the war. When Dad died, new emperor, Caracalla, you got to go lead the army, you got to go be the warrior, you got to go beat the bad guys up. And he was not doing so hot. And a lot of people were like, wonder if Gita would be any better. We've got another emperor. Can we can we go to the bullpen and get on the little phone and call in the relief emperor? And Caracalla was like, I'm the emperor. And they're like, but you're the co-emperor, right? This is, like Dwight be like assistant to the regional manager. The words are important. And Caracalla's like, no, I'm done with this. And he gets his brother killed. And this is a pretty big moment for his career, because when he does this, everybody immediately basically loses faith. Thank you, Vern. Vern, by the way, Lord of Tangents. It's his official title in the hierarchy. Julia Domna. Let me see if I can maybe... Can I share this? Here we go. Nope. What am I doing? There we go. Whoop. No, I can't see. There's Julia Domna. There we go. Bum-ba-da-bum. So she is the former wife of Septimius Severus, and she is the mother of Caracalla and Gita. Thank you, Vern. That was very polite and very kind. And she gets really upset when Caracalla kills Gita. And a lot of other people get really upset too. And Caracalla at that point sort of has the idea, I'm invincible. I'm the only one left. Because at that point, he did not have any heirs. He was not even... Well, he was married, but it wasn't like... She wasn't pregnant. He wasn't really caring that much about the marriage thing. He was off sort of doing his own thing. And he decides, what should I do? I'll just be the emperor, blow tons of money, and do whatever I want to. So that's what he does. He starts blowing tons of money. He starts building all of these ridiculously large buildings. So if you've ever been to Rome and you have been to the baths of Caracalla that are sort of out on the north side of the city, those are named after this guy. And they are one of the most elaborate set of public baths that the ancient world ever saw. And he built those because he wanted to show off. And he was the emperor, and nobody else was emperor then. And the problem with blowing a whole bunch of money in the middle of a whole bunch of wars is that you have to have money to run the army, right? You have to pay soldiers. So if you have a big, army that's built up to wartime strength, you've got to pay all these people. And then he's like, oh, crap, I do have to pay for this. So how do I pay for this? Well, around the time that he kills his brother a little while later. This is around the 213, 214 period of time. He starts running out of money, and then he starts trying to figure out what to do. And there are some border issues going around with the Germanic barbarians, and he has to go up and settle those. Of course, he has to continue to blow a whole bunch of money. But by the time you get to 217, he had basically run out of money and goodwill. So he had to do something. And he goes, oh, okay, here's what we're going to do. I hear that there's a lot of trouble over in Persia. And there was. There was a lot of trouble going on over here. And that trouble was basically the Parthian Empire was collapsing, and by this point had mostly collapsed. And there were new people taking over. These were the Sasanian Persians, who we talked about last week. And he figured this might be a good time for us to sort of pounce over there. We can take some of those big cities and we can loot them. And, loot is great for being broke. Here's the problem. Nobody really thinks this is a good idea. The army was already pretty tired from having to constantly fight the German invasions. Nobody really wanted to follow Caracalla into battle anyway because, let's just be honest, he was not that great of a military leader. Trouble with a capital T, correct. So this guy is just, it's bad news, right? Nobody in the army has any faith that this guy is going to lead them to victory against the Persians. They just don't think that he's the guy. But, he is the emperor, so they sort of just decide, let's just see how far he's willing to take this. And let's see his plans and let's see his strategy, and we'll decide afterwards. So they're like, okay, if you want to go invade Persia, let's see your plan. So he puts this thing together and he starts trying to gather up the army, and it's just hot garbage. And he gets part of the way over to Persia and is already getting mad with the sort of mid-level army people, and he's especially getting mad at his own bodyguard, who seemed to try to be giving him constructive criticism, like, do we really want to do that, Emperor? Do we really want to go that way, Emperor? And so he starts yelling at people and he starts threatening to kill people, and at that point his own Praetorian Guard decide, you know what, we're going to get rid of this guy. And in 217 there is a coup that is led against him. His own bodyguard, the Praetorian Guard, kill him. And this guy, who is one of the military leaders, a guy named Macrinus, takes over. I'll type his name here. It's fair to say, though, Macrinus does not hang around very long because there are things happening in the background. So when Caracalla gets assassinated, Julia Domna is pretty freaked out by this because she's, still kind of like the mother of the emperors, but there are no more emperors. And she wants to stay in power. She wants her Severan dynasty family to stay in power. So she goes to her sister and she's like, hey, sister. And I actually do, for some reason, have a picture of her sister and not her. This is her sister. This is Julia Somias. So here's the deal. They go, okay, look, do we have any heirs? And they know. Basically, Julia Domna had a nephew who was Julia Somias's son, and his name is Elagabalus, which is not his given name; it's his called name because he becomes a priest of this weird Syrian god named Elagabal. But we'll get there in just a second. So here's the plan. We've got to get rid of Macrinus, number one, and we've got to find some way to get Elagabalus from Syria to Rome. Because at this point, there's going to be a precedent that gets set that becomes sort of the precedent for the next 100 years. And that is, if you can get to Rome first, you can be emperor. Right? If you can sit in the chair, and if you can have the Senate recognize you formally, and you can do this before anybody else gets there, you can be emperor. Elagabalus. There's an us on the end of that. Is this no? This is not like elegant ball. What shall I wear? Your finest toga, good sir, but not trimmed in purple because you're not the emperor. So you got to be careful with that. Maybe with red. You could be good senatorial class, right? There's only one emperor. So basically what goes on here is that the Julias, Julia Domna and Julia Somius, go into overdrive, and they start bribing everybody, throwing the money around, and getting everybody sort of in line. And Macrinus is basically trying to get back to Rome first. The problem is, when he became sort of the leader of the coup against Caracalla, he had promised that he was going to give this big bonus to the military and the Praetorian Guard. And it turns out that when he becomes emperor, he doesn't actually have any of that money, so the Praetorian Guard is kind of hacked off at him anyway. And as soon as they find out that the Julias have a new candidate for emperor, they kill Macrinus. So Macrinus actually doesn't even rule for an entire year. It does lap over from 217 to 218, but not even a full calendar year. Where's ermine trim jacket? There we go. So Elagabalus has to have an army, and Julia Domna goes to one of the Gallic legions that was up in France at the time, and sort of bribes them to declare Elagabalus emperor and then help install him on the throne. I don't know if I can technically... Well, I guess I can read that. Sci-Fi says, I'll wear my pasties to the ball. So, I thought that was what you wore to Coachella, but fair enough. I don't actually know what fine evening wear looks like. So, sips tea. Anyway, so who is this Elagabalus guy? This is Elagabalus, and as you can tell, he's a kid. He is very young at this point. And you might ask, what was he doing in Syria to begin with? Well, he was a cousin to the emperors. He'd never really thought he was going to be emperor. So he had gone over to Syria, the Syria province, by the way, right around here where the modern day country of Syria is. And he had joined a cult to this Semitic / Syrian god named Elagabal. And he was sort of, with his creepy little mustache, he does have kind of like a little, like, creepy little mustache. Oops, sorry. Oop, whoop, there we go. There you go. Mm-hmm. Hi there. You see my mustache? Anyway, they had to get him back to Rome. And so he's traveling, and it takes him actually quite a while to get back to Rome. And one of the reasons that it's taking him a long time to get back to Rome is that he is making arrangements to have all of this stuff from his temple in Syria brought over to Rome itself. So Elagabalus does get to be emperor. They do declare him emperor. Punchable faces 2 streams in a row. All right. So we have the Severan ladies who are actually the power behind the throne again. They bribe the legions to declare him emperor. Everything is going well. And then he actually gets to be emperor. And he's emperor from 218 to 222. And you go, oh man, that's not very long. It's not. But he does a lot in that very short period of time. So again, he is a priest of this god Elagabal. And one of the manifestations of this particular god was this big stone. And if you've been with us before, and especially if you have been with us when we were talking about particular gods in the Levantine region, you might remember the word Baetyl, which is Baetyl. And a Baetyl is basically just a big standing stone that represents a god. And Elagabal had this big Baetyl, this big stone. And Elagabalus had it dragged all the way from Syria to Rome. And when he gets to Rome, he starts basically trying to tell everybody, okay, look, I'm the priest of this thing, Elagabal, and we're all going to worship Elagabal now. And builds a big temple to Elagabal and starts moving some of like the central treasures of the Roman history, like the Sibylline oracle texts and some of the ancient documents that were religious, into this new temple of his god, not Jupiter, who was the king of the gods in the Roman pantheon. And the Romans weren't ashamed or weird about having other deities sort of join their pantheon, but they were really weird about having one that wasn't one of theirs being put on top. And this gets really deep and really weird. And at one point, Elagabalus has the big stone Baetyl dragged into the middle of the Colosseum and starts having these big ceremonies where he himself will go out and sort of dance naked around this thing and make everybody show up and sing praises and do sacrifice to Elagabal. Force-feeding religion to a people always goes well. Right, Shmonite? Right? It never goes well. At one point, he publicly circumcises himself as a part of a ritual to Elagabal. That doesn't go over very well with the Romans. At one point, he marries a Vestal virgin, which was a huge no-no. The Vestal virgins were virgins for a reason. It was that they were... you could not even necessarily touch them at certain points. And he's like, yeah, I want one of them as my wife. And they're like, that's going to make the gods real mad. He's like, I'm emperor. And he ends up marrying a Vestal virgin. And he doesn't actually end up liking her very much. So he then divorces her, which is sort of like even worse, because now not only are you insulting the goddess by marrying one of her virgins, now you're insulting Vesta by saying, I didn't even think it was that great of a deal. So, no. Elagabalus is just not getting along very well. And I want to be very careful here when I say this next stuff, because I want to make sure that this is being said in proper context, because I don't want people thinking that this is what I think. I want you all to understand that this is what the Romans at the time thunk. So, Elagabalus got increasingly what the Romans would have considered deviant. And at one point, he is crushing really hard on this chariot driver and marries this charioteer. So, they have a same-sex marriage union, and he refers to this charioteer as his empress husband, which is very, very weird for the Romans. He doesn't actually end up liking that guy, so he ends up marrying another man, which is just not cool for the Romans. But one of the things that sort of like ends up just really getting him on the Romans really don't like this next thing. He kind of makes a public announcement that he would give large sums of money to any surgeon that were able to successfully graft female reproductive parts into his own body. So this to the Romans was really far out. The religious stuff was probably too much by itself, but the marrying of the Vestal Virgin and the divorces and then the marrying of the stuff and the gender stuff that he was having did not sit well with the Roman people. Again, let me reiterate, this did not sit well with those people back then. I'm not casting aspersions on this guy. He's a guy doing his thing, right? I don't think he was actually hurting anybody. Does this dude like anyone? Not really. He does like Elagabal. How far do you have to go for the Romans to consider you deviant? This is, I don't know. So this is actually a thing that a lot of people, especially in more modern history, have been looking at. Was Elagabalus potentially a transsexual? We don't know. We don't actually have any documentation of stuff from his point of view. All that we have are the Roman historians' records of him. And I can tell you that from the records that they left about this guy, they are biased against him. So we have to take what they say with a grain of salt and understand that they're writing with a bias because he was way outside of what they considered normal. And we don't know because, it would be great if emperors wrote biographies of themselves and left them for posterity, but we don't really have that. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, if you want to go read it, it's in the historian Dio Cassius. You can look all this stuff up if you are super interested in reading about this guy. You think he was a Greek who hit a snake or something? I think that he was not in line with what the norm was for the Romans. And because he was emperor, he was drawing a lot of attention already. And because he was the emperor, he was sort of supposed to be the figurehead of the Romans. And because he was being what they considered really, really far out, they were going to try to take steps to calm him down. So one of the things that the Severan ladies did, his mom, Julia Somias, and his aunt, Julia Domna, they decide we need to get this guy to make another dude co-emperor. And they go find this other brother, this guy named Alexander Severus. Let me put him on here. Alexander Severus. And I can show you, this is Elagabalus. This is Alexander Severus. He was a little bit older, a cousin of the family. Again, not directly in line to be emperor, but a cousin that was in the same family within the Severan dynasty. And they convinced Elagabalus to pick this guy as co-emperor. And this actually calmed a lot of the stuff down, because at that point, a lot of the people that were like, dude, we are being driven off of the deep end by this guy. We can't really handle him very much. This calmed them down. They're like, okay, at least if something weird happens, we can kill him and we have Alexander Severus. That will level everything out. And this especially makes the army happy, because it's fairly, I should say this, the Roman army was always one of the most conservative religious conservative religious Roman bodies. You know, if you're going to go out and fight and you're going to be on the front lines getting potentially killed, you want the gods on your side. And when Elagabalus had begun to do a lot of the stuff, making demoting Jupiter and angering Vesta and this kind of stuff, that made the army very, very uncomfortable. So with Alexander Severus, this was a good Roman. He was doing things the right way. He was more interested in kind of being among the people and not doing his own thing. So this calmed the army down a lot. But Elagabalus recognized really quickly that everybody preferred Alexander Severus instead of him. And it wasn't really hard to tell, because as soon as Alexander Severus got promoted to co-emperor, everybody immediately tried to forget about Elagabalus altogether. And he's like, no, I'm the emperor. He's the co-emperor. I'm the emperor. And that didn't sit very well. And in 222, Elagabalus decides, I'm just going to demote him. I promoted him to co-emperor. I can demote him to not co-emperor. Co-emperors always work well. Also, hey, Kelly. I'm sorry I didn't say hey when you came in. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. So he tries to demote Alexander Severus. And as soon as that happens, the Praetorian Guard is like, you don't get to demote him, and they kill Elagabalus. So if you're keeping score, it's Emperor 0, Praetorian Guard 2. Sensing a pattern here. Assistant to the Emperor. Right, assistant to the Emperor. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, right? Okay, so now we have Alexander Severus. He's ruling as sole emperor, and he rules from 222 to 235. So he actually has a nice sized chunk of time. But he was very young when he took over, and he could have lived a lot longer than 235, so that tells you what's going to happen to him. So he is young, but he is well liked. The people look back at Elagabalus and go, man, this guy's so much better, so much better. And at very early part of his reign, Persia tries to invade, and Alexander Severus is able to marshal the empire, bring the army over, fight off the Persians, and basically bring them to heel. And everybody is like, oh, dude, thank you. We've got a competent leader. We've got a good strategist. We've got somebody that the army is going to fight for. This is great. This is going to be really good. We're really excited about this guy. And then the Germans. Oh, the Germans. The Germans show back up in force. And this is where, unfortunately, Alexander Severus is going to run into trouble. You're the backup emperor. Yeah, wait, what? Who watches The Watchmen? There should be an assassination count on screen, like, bing! Oh, maybe that's what I should build. Maybe I should build an assassin counter where, like, every time somebody gets assassinated, you can type ! assassin, and it'll round up. It'll say, like, so many people have been assassinated on stream. I need to build that. Somebody remind me of that when we get off of stream, because if I remember it, or if I think about it now, I will not remember it when we get off stream. My brain will immediately just go blank, and I'll just get hungry, which is immediately what happens after I get off stream, like every time. Anyway, that would be a great idea. Oh, was this a little knife guy? That's great. Reminds me of Tonberries from Final Fantasy 7 and 8. Ich bin ein Kaiser. Yeah, I am the emperor now. Like, look, I am the emperor now. So, the Germans are what's going to get Alexander Severus in trouble. He is successfully able to fight off the first few incursions, but the prolonged exposure to threats along the border are going to wear his army down. And what is going to end up being his downfall is actually what is probably some pretty good decisions. He ends up defeating some of the German tribes, and instead of basically pursuing them into enemy territory, he basically starts trying to cut deals with them. Basically saying, like, if we don't wipe you all out right now, will you all agree to this? And in certain instances, when there are big invasions, if he can't get the army fast enough, he'll actually send ambassadors to some of these German armies and asks, can I just pay you off to leave? And this is not the worst idea. But the army hates this idea, because to the army, this is Alexander Severus saying, I don't have faith in the Roman army to fight you off. I'm going to bribe you so that I don't have to go get in a fight that I'm going to lose because my army sucks. And that's what gets him in trouble. Because when you lose the faith of the military, you lose the faith of everybody. And Alexander Severus in 235 is going to get assassinated. And what makes it worse is that they assassinate his mother and a lot of the other women in the family too. So it's not just we're going to get rid of the emperor, it's we're getting rid of the Severan dynasty. And that is pretty damaging. They didn't read Sun Tzu's chapter on bribes? Clearly not. Clearly not. I don't know if there's... That would actually be an interesting question. Like, when was the first copy of Art of War made in the West? Because, I mean, the text existed at that point. I just don't know how far it had been transmit from China. That sounds like a research rabbit hole that I would get on, and I would be on that research rabbit hole for months. So I think I'm just going to let that one pass. That's a fascinating concept, though. Anyway. Assassination. What happens after? From 235 to 284, we enter what we call the crisis of the 3rd century. Does that have 2 spaces? Yeah, we get rid of that. That'll fit. All right, so the crisis of the 3rd century. And this is a pretty rough time to be in Rome. If you live in Rome during this period of time from 235 to 284, Rome is in rough shape. I don't know why I said rough shop. Rough shape. During this period of time, in this 50 years, we in Rome go through 26 emperors that are actually crowned emperor. There are another 24 to 28 that claim the title of emperor, but never actually get to be emperor. And Rome falls into an absolutely enormous civil war. And it stretches for basically this whole period of time. Of those potential 50-ish claimants to the Roman throne, 2 of them die of old age. The other ones are killed in battle or assassinated. And it is really, really bad. And there are a lot of problems. So let's sort of go through the problems of what Rome had, and then we can sort of explain how this larger issue came about. According to Wikipedia, the book was translated into French and published in 1772 by the French Jesuit Jean-Joseph Marie Amiot. Partial translation into English was attempted by British officer Everard Ferguson Calthrop. That is the most British name I think I've ever seen in my life. Hello, I'm Everard Ferguson Calthrop, and I translated Sun Tzu's Art of War. That sounds absolutely horrible. So that's the known translation. My larger, and I'm not asking you to do this, Vern, by the way. This is probably going to be way deep stuff. Would be to try to follow the transmission of that text through publication channels, because I'd be interested to see if that was even in places like Persia or India prior to being in the West. That name genuinely outdoes Benedict Cumberbatch as the most British name you've ever seen. I prefer to call him Bandersnatch Cumberbund. Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch is a pretty British name, though. All right, so there are really big problems in Rome. What are the big problems? Number one, hey, a drop bear, good to see you. Biggest problem in Rome was too big. It was too big. Again, Rome was basically everything that you can see on the map right now. Like, all of this was Rome. And one person was trying to rule it. Eggs Benedict Cumberbund. Don't you be mean to Bandersnatch. I like Benedict Cumberbatch. No, I'm saying it, Cumberbund. I like Benedict Cumberbatch. I really enjoyed Sherlock. I think his take on Doctor Strange was quite good. I really wish the script would have been a bit stronger. It wasn't a bad script. I just think that it fell really flat by the end. I don't think that there was any sense of tension by the end of that movie. I think everybody already knew that he was going to beat the big bad, and there wasn't really any sort of risk-reward thing going on there. He was great in Imitation Game. If you have not seen Imitation Game, dude, go watch that movie. It's absolutely amazing. It's about Alan Turing and the creation of one of the first big code-breaking computers that broke down the Enigma machine. We don't refer to those movies, KP. Those movies are just bad. The Dream Worm. I knew what you're. I actually read it as Dread. I didn't even see that it was Dream until you corrected yourself. Okay, so Rome is too big. There are too many people living in one empire to be ruled by one person. Also, the capital is in the wrong spot. So if you look where the population of Rome is, Rome, the city, of course, is here in Italy, and about 70% of the population is on like this side of that line. So this part of Rome is probably 35 to 40% of the population, and 65 to 70% is on this side. So the capital is really far away from the really big ancient cities that were sort of the money-making stuff, and especially from the big borders, like the ones over here that were where Persia was, and the ones over here. Now you might go, oh, that's like not so far, but let's remember that you have all of these mountains that you would have to cross to get from Rome over here, and it just was not conducive to quick moving and quick notification. So the capital is a bit off. The empire is too big. And during this period of the crisis of the 3rd century, it becomes really clear that trying to set up a dynasty is really hard to do. Everybody wants their kids to rule. Everybody wants to pass down the throne to their kid. And what ends up happening is they have a lot of these like co-emperor situations during this time. And when the head emperor gets killed and the co-emperor takes over, it's this little kid, and they don't really understand what's going on. And, you know, so you've got like a 14-year-old kid trying to be emperor, but the guy that's leading the army goes, I'm not going to follow this 14-year-old kid, so I'm just going to declare myself emperor. And then it really does become this race to Rome. Everybody wants to rule the world, but who says you can't go Rome, right? Who says you can't go Rome? Who says you can't go Rome? Anyway, I hope that you're singing Bon Jovi in your head now. If not, maybe you will after I remember or remind you that it's Bon Jovi. So everybody's trying to get to Rome. Everybody wants to be emperor. And what you see is this constant stream of rebellion against the finger quote legitimate empire. Somebody that's a big general tries to get over to Rome to get rid of the person, or the guy that's in Rome gets assassinated, and then you have multiple emperors or multiple claimants to the throne, and they're all trying to run back home to Rome, and it's just a big mess. It's a really, really big mess. During this period of time, the Roman money basically bottoms out. It gets so debased that it's effectively almost worthless. The gold coins that they were circulating were not even like 70% gold, which is super low, by the way. Super low. Usually you're up in the low 90s, the mid 90s when it comes to gold. So if you're below 70, you are way off. Dynasty succession and problems thereof also happened in geographically smaller places like feudal Japan. That was the case for some and it really depends on what time that you're talking about. If you're talking about the succession of shoguns, that was a really big problem in periods of time like the Sengoku period, Muromachi period, whatever you want to call it. The imperial throne was never necessarily in question, except for a couple of times where you had some rival claimants where they're trying to do the two emperor thing. But even they were both from the same clan, and neither of them really had any power. But yeah, the geography is not necessarily key to it. The problem with Rome's geography is that it's too big for communication to happen effectively. Even with the Roman road system, it might take you a month to get news from the border, and that means it takes you another month to send news back. You get a message and it's like, Egypt is revolting, and you're like, oh, I don't think they're that bad. They're like, no, sir, they're revolting against the country. You're like, oh, bother. Well, send them a message back saying, I'm going to send an army. So then it takes a month for your message to get back that says you're going to send an army. Then you actually have to build an army, and then you have to put it on a boat, and you have to float it all the way over to Egypt, which takes forever. So you might be responding to this thing 2 or 3 months later. There's a lot that can happen in 3 months, So there's just a lot of geographic space that one person is trying to cover. So most of these emperors that are going to try to claim the throne are going to end up dying in battle. They're going to end up getting assassinated. But the situation in Rome gets so bad that Rome actually starts splintering. Oh my heavens, my monocle pops out. There are parts of Rome that start breaking away. Send a runner. Okay, now send him back. What do you mean he's tired? Okay, so check this out. This is a map of what Rome looked like in 271. So this is about just a little bit less than 40 years after Alexander Severus gets killed. And note, Rome has split. And you have this region up here called the Gallic Empire, which is basically the provinces of Gaul and Provence. So there's actually a province called Provence. It's spelled with an E instead of an I, which is basically this region right down here in the coastal part of France, which is where like Monaco is now. New drinking game. Every time Shane says assassin, take a shot. You would probably be hammered by this point. Anyway, so we have a Gallic emperor, and the Gallic emperor is actually claiming to be the legitimate emperor of Rome, and is trying to get down to Rome. You have an emperor in Rome, which is, this colored in pink here. But then you have this new group over here called the Palmyrene Empire. And we have mentioned Palmyra a couple of times in the stream, but it's now time to give them a little bit more attention. So there's a city that was... Ooh, sorry, that's Zenobia. There's a city that was in Syria right about here. And the city's called Palmyra. And it was a pretty big city-state that was being particularly lucky, sort of staying on the border between the Romans and the Persians. And when everything starts going bad in Rome, the Palmyrenes decide, hey, we could kind of expand. And so they do, and they start taking territory away from the Romans. So you have an emperor up here that's claiming to be emperor, you have a Roman emperor, and then you have the king of Palmyra, who actually at this point was a queen. This lady right here, whose name is Zenobia. Zenobia is one of the more famous women rulers of this entire century. She was incredibly canny as a leader. She was really wise when it came to strategy, and the only reason she lost is basically because she was massively overwhelmed and outnumbered by the Romans. Unless your name is Tyrion Lannister, you'd probably die of alcohol poisoning. Better than that, being shot with an X-bow bolt whilst on the potty. Yeah, crossbow bolt. Sorry, that was supposed to be crossbow. The poodles are coming. The poodles are coming. Right. Also, I don't think I said hello, Tegman. Hey, Tegman, how are you, my friend? So, you've even got breakaway parts of the empire, and Rome was in real bad shape. Really, really bad shape. Now, Zenobia is going to basically fall in 270. Oh, it's not, that's not all of her hair. She's actually got like a crown thing on that's supposed to be like, so this is part of the crown, right? And then her hair is sort of brushed back and done up in a curl. So got the crown on, and then you brush the hair back over the crown. Her name is, I can erase this. I think we've pretty much Zenobia. Dangers of being a bloated empire. Susceptibility to fractioning. Yeah, exactly. So Zenobia is going to be defeated by one of the Roman leaders and successfully negotiates basically the surrender of most of her territory in exchange for her life and the lives of her family. So she manages to get out of the situation without getting killed, which was itself pretty miraculous considering how bad Rome was at the time. You know, everybody was pretty much getting killed. They reabsorb the Gallic Empire in 274, and this doesn't solve all of the problems. Things are getting better, but they're not fixed. There is massive inflation. The prices of daily goods are just completely blown out of proportion, and your money is worth very, very little. There is an enormous amount of depopulation. The trade routes that had sustained the Roman Empire for centuries were beginning to break down, partially because parts of the empire weren't part of the empire anymore, especially Egypt. Egypt was the breadbasket of the empire. They got most of their food as exports from Egypt, and when the Palmyrene took over Egypt, that cut off a big supply of their food. So you've got these really big breakdowns in trade. There is almost constant war, which is killing people, right? It's killing soldiers. It is depopulating cities because those soldiers that are dying are not home having babies, so the next generation is really small. And there is a ton of sickness. There is actual plague. There is an entire bout of what people think might have been some sort of like really big typhoid thing, like some sort of, not typhoid, typhus outbreak. So there are lots of ailments, very contagious ailments spreading around. It's bad. It gets really, really bad. Breaking news, war kills people. Right? I know, Drop Bear, that's crazy. I would never have thought that war kills folks. But the border zones become basically porous, and you never really know if you're living in a border zone where the border is actually where it's defensible. And what this means is that a lot of people actually move out of the border zones, and they move into some of the larger cities in the interior of the country. But that means there are fewer farmers, and that actually creates overcrowding issues in some of the cities, especially cities that were within, a fair distance from what used to be the border. So, I mean, you're having all of these problems that are sort of being exacerbated by this constant war. Conquering new territories, reducing populations, ensuring oil supply. Oh, yeah. I don't know what that oil supply thing was. Hey, Meg, good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Things are just going really bad. And this is why it's referred to as the crisis of the 3rd century, because Rome gets really close to the brink. Luckily, there's going to be a guy that comes around to save them. And his name is Diocletian. And he looks like this. Bum, ba, da, bum. Oh, Diocletian, what will you do? How will you fix this problem, Diocletian? Well, the first thing you do is you basically kill everybody else that wants to be emperor. Step 1, make sure that you're the only emperor. So Diocletian has to fight at the beginning of his claim to kill everybody else, and then he becomes emperor, right? And he's uncontested emperor. Step 1, kill everyone. As opposed to his redneck cousin Diocletus. Diocletus, what are you doing over there? I'm sorry. That's great. Diocletus. Oh. Whew, Diocletus. Diocletus? Okay. He sounds he's from Illyria. Illyria is this region right here. So what is today Croatia and Montenegro and Slovenia. So this was Illyria right here. And his big palace where he sort of goes to retire is in a city in modern-day Croatia that was called Split. And you can still go see the remains of it today. I had plans to go do that with a friend, and those plans never came to fruition. We had this thing that we were going to call the most epic Balkans road trip. And then we figured out that there were too many problems in the Balkans, and you can't actually drive rental cars across some of the borders, and that sort of killed the whole thing. It could be done with trains, but that's not quite the same as calling it a road trip. So, you know. Drop beer, that was really good. That was really good. I live in the south of the United States where that has a special sort of, you know, like I grew up redneck, right? So that felt a lot personal to me. Anyway, so step 1, kill everybody. Step 2, you gotta fix the money. The money problem is a big problem. So, how does Diocletian fix the money? Well, here's the thing. You can increase the amount of gold in the coins, but that takes a long time to work its way through circulation. And you're the Aussie version of a redneck. They didn't actually want me to let that through. Apparently that phrase bogan, is it bogan or bogon? Or where's the accent on that? In Straya. Is it like bogan? Or is it Baugan? Bogan? I'm going to say bogan. Or bogan. Okay. I'm with you. Gotcha. Okay. I'm unfamiliar with the term. Okay, bow is in bow and arrow. Okay, bogan. Okay. All right. Learn something new, right? Learn something new. Am I going to get in trouble saying that on Twitch, by the way? Is that like a slur that people are going to get really upset about? Am I going to get canceled because I said that word? Because I don't want to get canceled. Anyway, so there's a place called that word. Okay. All right, cool beans. So, I mean, you don't have to be racist to be canceled now. You can basically be, I made anybody upsetist. There are legitimate reasons to use social backlash against people, and then there are people that just get happy with the power that they have on the internet. And those are different things. So, first off, you got to kill the bad guys, which he does. Number 2, you got to fix the money. How you going to fix the money, though? Again, you can start minting new coins. But, you know, that's going to take a while to get through. So what you can do, though, is take what might be considered by some really drastic steps. Modern day economists would feel like this is just, no, we can't do this. But it's an example that I can put on the adventure hat to show you. So if you are unfamiliar, this is the adventure hat. And when I go on my adventures, I wear the adventure hat. As an Australian and New Zealand slang for a person whose speech, clothing, attitude, and behavior are considered unrefined or unsophisticated. Depending on the context, the term can be pejorative or self-deprecating. When you see the old adventure hat. You can throw those adventure hat icons in there. Or, hey, JMR, good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. But one of the things that Diocletian does is he builds a cool little village. No, actually, he puts out this big announcement that gets published to the entire empire called the Pricing Edict. And this is a really, really thorough list of what Diocletian considered to be everyday items. And using his power as emperor, he fixed the prices of these items. For example, a loaf of bread is worth this much money, period. End of the day, that's all you can charge for it. A chicken is worth this. A length of rope is worth this. So this was basically very much socialism. And that the price edict got a lot of flack. A lot of people thought that this was going to absolutely wreck the empire. But it did a lot to fix the empire because it basically ended price gouging and it slowed down inflation long enough for him to get better coins into circulation. So you might be wondering why I'm showing you this thing. What the devil is this thing, and why are we looking at it? Well, this is from a little area in Turkey that I got to go see back. Oh man, when was that? When was I in Turkey? I was in Turkey in 2016. Oh man, that feels like forever ago. Anyway, this is at a place in Turkey called AiH, and it's basically over on the western coast of Turkey, pretty close to the. I'll show you here when we switch back over to the map. I mean, I guess I could show you here on the map. AiH is right about here. Anyway, this was in the middle of their market. And if we see here, this is a little stand and it's got this little wall running around it. But if you want to see the wall itself, this wall is just absolutely covered by this big inscription. And this inscription is actually the entire text of the price edict. And if you went to the market, you could literally look at the words of the emperor and see how much he had stated somebody could charge for this thing. And see, you can see like some of the prices here. It's like 25 pieces, 25 pieces. What is this? 50. That's DL. Yeah, so you could see like here are the actual prices. Now, I know it's kind of hard to read like now, but it would have been significantly easier to read at the time. Well, like, yeah, so we actually have the entire thing translated, and if you go to Google and do some Googling, you can find Diocletian's price edict translated in full text. Because AiH was not the only place that he put these. He put these all over the empire. And he spent Roman like government money to have these big walls spread out all over the empire, because this was like universal Roman price fixing. This was this, like, you could go to Egypt and buy a loaf of bread for the same price that you could buy it in Britain or the Black Sea coastline or Morocco. This was everywhere in the Roman Empire. Here's how much you can charge for this stuff. 1,500 years of weathering would damage it, right? You know, it's been out in the middle of the woods. And it's actually older than that. So Diocletian is publishing this. So he took over in 284. The pricing edict is in about 287. Then it takes a couple of years, of course, for it to kind of get all the way around. So that might be from between, let's say, 286 and 290. Yeah, like you can read the whole thing. Like because we have so many copies of it from so many different places across the empire, we've been able to completely piece this back together, and we know everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And this really helped the financial situation because, again, if you can't price gouge, you have to charge the prices that the emperor says. This means that the inflation is immediately going to max out. Like, there is a maximum amount of inflation that can happen when he is saying this is how much stuff costs. So this is a big deal, and it gets really far into fixing a lot of the larger issues. Diocletian, The Price is Right. Yeah, that would be like more of a memory test than a guessing game, right? Like, you go to The Price is Right, and like, here we have a nice donkey. Look, it's a male donkey with nice teeth. It's approximately 3 years old. And hey, what do we have to go with it? A year's supply of hay. How much do we start the bidding at? And then somebody is like, everybody, puts their bid in, and the last person goes, 1 dinar! Because, the $1 bit. But my free market, yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. Fish sauce, first quality, 1 sexteria, 16 denarius. Yes. Yeah, common dinar. So, common dinar. Yeah. So, good quality fish sauce. What do they win, Johnny? Well, today's guests all get first quality fish sauce. Fish sauce, put it on everything because you don't have ketchup. Right? So this fixes a lot of the stuff. Then there's this whole issue with Persia. And Persia is like, oh, Rome is weak. We should invade. And Diocletian basically punks Persia. And he tells them, like, no, just go away. Stop. No, don't bother with this. And Persia's like, oh, fine. We don't fight you anyway. Shelled pine nuts were cheaper than pistachios. Man, you got to go back in time. I have seen a recipe in eating history. Yeah, fish sauce is pretty gross. It's basically ancient version of Worcestershire sauce, where they just sort of get a whole bunch of fish and they wait for them to dissolve into nothing and then ferment. The fermentation makes it better. Fish sauce was called garum, by the way. It's Garum. Fermented fish stuff. Mmm. Right? So, okay, we've got 3 of the problems fixed. We've got no more claimants to the throne. All this time, Rome was still united. Yes, at this point, Rome was still united under one empire for the moment. But that's going to be one of the things that change here. So we've got no more claimants to the throne because he's killed everybody. We have stabilized the borders, got rid of Persia, excellente. Fixed the inflation problem, perfecto. What's left? Well, Diocletian was dramatically aware that Rome was too big. And he recognized that it's just too big for one person to rule. So, this is his idea. We're going to divide Rome. And we're going to split Rome in half. And then we're going to split those halves into pieces. And this is what he referred to as the Tetrarchy. Tetrarchy means the rule of 4. Looking at that price list, teachers were actually valued back in those days. Yeah. Because there's stuff on there like how much you can charge for tutors, how much you can charge for private lessons and things like that. Yeah, because it's like basically the most common things that people spent money on were all price fixed. Okay, so we're going to split the empire, and we're going to have 4 people, and this is going to be the Tetrarchy. So how does this actually work? Well, the first thing that we have to do is realize that Rome was just too big for one person to rule, right? And Diocletian was very much aware of that because he had traveled all over the empire. He had been up, down, left, right. He had been all over the place, and he knew how hard it was to try to hold on to all of this place. So What are we going to do? We're going to split it up, and he's not going to forget the lessons of the past. So let's look at the map of the Tetrarchy. And we're actually going to be on this map for a little while because it does take a little bit of unpacking, and I want to make sure that I point out all of the really important things. Okay, so first off, this looks a bit messy and kind of crazy, but let me give you the rundown. Okay, so first off, there's going to be a line drawn right here, basically down the Adriatic and into Africa. And we're going to have two halves. There's going to be the Western Empire, and there's going to be the Eastern Empire. All right? Now, in each of these empires, there is going to be an Augustus, right? We can see here Augustus. This is going to be the head emperor. So there's going to be an Augustus of the West, and there's going to be an Augustus of the East. However, there is also going to be a junior or co-emperor with the title Caesar. So there's going to be a Caesar of the West and a Caesar of the East. And here's the thing. The Augustus, or Augusti as they become known, are going to be the ruling emperors. They are the ones that have the power to make most of the decisions. They are going to be the ones that get sort of defaulted to, and they're going to have their own capitals. But we're also going to move the capitals. Now, Rome is still going to be the place where everybody gets crowned, right? Like if you are going to be a new emperor, if you're going to be a new Augustus or a new Caesari, you're going to go to Rome, you're going to have your coronation there, but you're not going to live there. You're going to live in one of these new territorial capitals. So in the West, if you'll remember what the Gallic Empire looked like. All right, so here's our Gallic Empire. Remember when that split away? So look at what Diocletian does when he splits up the empire. It's almost the same. Because what he realized was that this was about as much as you could control in this particular location. And there's going to be a new territorial capital at Trier. And in the West, your Caesar is going to be a guy named Constantius. All right? When does the ship Voyager get lost in the Delta Quadrant? I don't know, Vern. I'm not certain. So, also over here in the West, you're going to have the rest of the Western Empire, and you're going to have a new capital at Milan. Now, why Milan and not Rome? Well, the answer is that Milan is closer to these borders. Now, if you see over here, we can see Germanic peoples. We can see the Rhine River. This had been one of the natural limes. Those in the Alps are going to keep a lot of these people out. And you need to be closer to the border here to be able to effectively watch what's going on. Rome is good, and they still have Rome, which is why they're the Augustus. But you need to be within striking distance of the border. Look how close Trier is to the border. Look how close Milan is to the border. Over here, Sirmium is literally on the border in the east. What Diocletian is doing is recognizing that our borders are the regions that we're having trouble in, and we need our leaders on the borders. This part of Rome wasn't really causing so much trouble. Now, over here in the east, we do have a new capital in the east at Sirmium, which is going to be for our Caesar in the east, which is a guy named Galerius. And then over here, we're going to have a new capital at a place called Nicomedia, where our Augustus of the West is going to rule. And again, if we go back and look at the Palmyrene Empire, now this looks an awful lot like what Diocletian made over here. Why is Nicomedia not on the eastern periphery of this region then? Now that's a great question. So the issue with having a regional border right over here is this problem. Armenia. Armenia had been a thorn in the side of the Romans for centuries. And putting a capital over here, right on the border with Armenia, is dangerous because the single largest unified threat to Rome was Persia. So you actually benefit from having a buffer over here to keep your capital away so that if you need to, your troops can help along the Danubian border, which was a big problem over here with Ostrogoths and Dacians and such. So having an invasion buffer to keep Armenia basically isolated away from you and keep Persia from being able to just like blitzkrieg strike your capital, that's a great question, Drop Bear. And he understood that. He was very much aware that the biggest actual threat in a singular manner was the Persians. So you have this breakdown of a system. This tetrarchy was set up so that you had faster response times, you had people that were capable of leading the military, and Diocletian goes one step further, and he says that you cannot choose your son to succeed you, right? Or to succeed you. So in his part of the empire over in the east, Galerius was not his son. Galerius was just another emperor. Now Diocletian had a son, but he did not choose his son as his heir because Diocletian was very much against this idea of trying to force dynasties to happen. He said that what needs to happen is for you to pick the most legitimate leaders and put the most legitimate leaders in those positions. So he picked the other three. He picked Maximian, he picked Constantius, and he picked Galerius, who were all military leaders along with him. Also might be the best strategy to keep your sons alive. A fair point. A fair point. If you want your kids to be successful, get them into the military. Maybe in the next go-round, they might get picked, but they can't get picked if they get assassinated because they're trying to wipe out your entire lineage. Yeah, this guy really is ahead of his time. Diocletian was one of the most brilliant politicians that I don't think people know about. He doesn't really get a lot of love. I don't think, well, I don't know, you might have, but how many of you all have ever heard of Diocletian before this particular stream tonight? I would bet that it's not a majority of the people. So here's the system. You have your Augusti at the top, you have your Caesari at the bottom, and when Diocletian set this whole thing up, he meant for people to retire. When you got old, you were supposed to retire. You were not supposed to die in office. When you got to the point where you could not command the army, you were supposed to retire. And when you retired, your Caesar would roll up to Augustus, and then that person would get to pick the next Caesar. They could not pick their son, though. How far from Marcus Aurelius? So Marcus Aurelius was part of a group called the Five Good Emperors. Diocletian is about 130 years after him. 100, yeah, almost, yeah, right about 130 years after. So a century and a third. You heard of Diocles, but that's a different person, yeah. So this whole system has been designed so that it functions the right way. Your Caesaris are going to roll up to Augusti. They're going to get to pick the next Caesaris. They're not going to be able to pick their sons. They're going to pick from viable political or military candidates. And this is going to eliminate the need of this constant warfare. It's going to bring peace to the Roman Empire. And it does. The reign of Diocletian is the biggest stretch of peace that Rome had this whole century. He rules from 284 to 305, and things are pretty darn good for him. And next time, we'll get to see what happens. Because, heads up, not everybody is as smart as Diocletian was. But, one more thing, and I get to put the adventure hat back on. I showed one side of this last stream when we were talking specifically about Galerius, but I told you that I would show you the rest of the column. So let me show you the other side of this thing, which is the Porphyry column This is the Tetrarchy. This is Diocletian and Galerius, and here we have Maximian and Constantius. Notice they're hugging each other. They are being displayed as the four brothers. There was a lot of propaganda that went into this where they were basically always pictured together. They were always pictured being dressed about the same. Their coins sometimes are even difficult to tell apart because they even started portraying themselves basically the same. So if the legend is rubbed off of the coin, we can't even tell which one it is sometimes because the propaganda image that Diocletian is trying to blast everybody with is we are united. There are four of us, but we are all together. We are all lined up in the same direction. We are all focused on the same goal. And yeah, we've got swords because we're here to defend Rome and we will fight you. Right? Come at me, bro. Cliffhanger. Shmonite, I always love to do the cliffhanger. It keeps people coming back. I also hope that the fun atmosphere and the interesting information keeps people coming back. But you leave them wanting more, right? That's the good old-fashioned writer's tip, right? You always leave them wanting more. Not good in all things in life, but, it helps. Okie doke. So that is all for our Roman century. However, as always, this does not mean that we have to run away. If you all have questions, or if you have any sort of point redemptions that you want to do, or if you want to bring up a topic that's been going on and you want to get some insight to it. Bum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum dum dum. Shmonite, thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the adventure. What's in the news? Kelly, do you have anything particular in the news that you want me to talk about, or you just want me to talk about what's in the news? Because I can do either. What is in the news? Texas school district wants books opposing the Holocaust. I'm so tired of talking about the Texas school district. Not that I'm tired. Not that I'm upset with you asking about that. I'm mostly so tired that they have such an overwhelmingly large amount of impact on the high school curriculum. Okay, so a little bit of background. The Texas School Board has traditionally very, very conservative, traditionally very, very Republican, and traditionally very, very, very Christian viewpoints. And because Texas is so populated and buys so many textbooks, there's actually a disproportionate effect on the elementary, junior high, and high school textbooks in the entire United States because a textbook manufacturer or writer is not going to want to publish a textbook that can't be sold in Texas. So what has happened is that Texas, because it is very, very conservative, very, very Republican, and very, very Christian, they have used that to sort of bully people into printing stuff their way. And one of the issues that's going on right now is there's a particular school district in Texas that basically is trying to... oh, man. Okay, so the issue here is whether or not there is an opposing view. So a lot of the books that are in this particular library talk about how bad the Holocaust is. Because, the Holocaust was horrible. 12 million people plus got murdered. And there is a big pushback where there aren't books that represent the Holocaust in an opposing fashion. Now, I don't know if that means that they want they want people to publish books that promote the Holocaust as a good thing, or if they want to talk about how the Holocaust didn't happen. But I'm not so sure what the opposing viewpoint would be, so that these books that talk about how bad the Holocaust was could be opposed. So it's a fact that the Holocaust happened. It's a fact that the Nazis killed 12 million people. It's a fact that all of this happened. We have proof of it. How do you present an opposing view of that without denying the actual truth? I don't know. But what's happening is that there is a really big movement inside of a lot of the sort of teachers groups inside of Texas that have already been pushed around about a lot of stuff, specifically with how books in Texas deal with race, specifically with how books in Texas deal with the Civil War in the United States, how books deal with slavery in the United States. For those of you that are not familiar with sort of the larger American love affair with the Civil War, there are a lot of people in the southern part of the United States that... so in 1861, there was a really big war in the United States where 13 of the southern states... let me go over here to the United States and I'll throw on... borders. North. Write yourself. Borders. Okay, so if we're looking at... where are the borders? There we go. No. So Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, which is this guy, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia were slave states. And they had slaves, and they broke away. They formed a new country that they called the Confederate States of America. And then we had a 4.5 or so year long civil war between the southern states and the northern states. This was fought over the southern states' right to hold slaves. The northern states did not want that. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with it, but effectively it came down to, should slavery be legal? Yes, no. And when the North won, they made the South give up slaves. They made them sign onto constitutional amendments that gave everybody citizenship and that banned slavery. So basically this destroyed the southern economy, and then over the next decade and a half, the North went through this period that was called Reconstruction, where they effectively oversaw the rebuilding of the South, which was not done directly or fairly in many cases, but was done mostly under the auspice of trying to make sure that people in the South had access to land and equality, which it still didn't. But anyway, by the time you got to the end of the 1800s, there had begun this theory that becomes known as the lost cause, where basically the South was glorified as this chosen country that was God's chosen country, and that they had been defeated by these evil Northerners in what they called the War of Northern Aggression, because God had sanctioned slavery and God had set aside the South, and there were preachers that were preaching about how the Bible justified slavery, and that that black people were cursed with this thing called the Mark of Ham, and there's all of this like religious justification for all of this stuff. And there are a lot of people in the South that bought into that lie, and it is a lie. It's absolutely a falsehood. It's complete and utter garbage. And if you notice, I'm not wearing the opinion hat because it's provably false. Anyway, Jesus was not a white guy. Let me catch up with chat. Sorry. I'm sort of rambling now. We hope that they oppose the Holocaust, but not just accounting. Yeah, exactly. Christian with finger. Yeah. Texas set aside money for school books and takes input from literally anyone. That's pretty much true. You're tired from work and you passed out and almost missed a Shane swim. Oh, Batbird. Hey, Batbird. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Anti-CRT movement is going so well, they might as well be open to hating Jewish people too. Yeah, well, I don't know. The critical race theory thing is a whole big ball of yarn, not necessarily one that we can untie right now without some direct discussion That would be a much longer thing. If they're conservative Christians, can someone please remind them that Christians was a Jew? Yes, Jewish, Hebrew, same difference. Hebrew is a group of people. Jewish were the religious choice, but at that time, Hebrews were mostly Jewish. There were Hebrews, Semitic people at that point that were Greek, so it's not fair to say that all people that were Semitic were Hebrew. Nor is it necessarily 100% accurate to say that all people that were Jewish were Semitic. But it's a Venn diagram that overlaps really deeply. Anyway, so in the Americas, especially in the South, there are a lot of people that are still convinced that the South was special and that the Civil War was this amazing thing and that the North stole freedom from the South and that slavery wasn't so bad and that the war wasn't even over slavery. It was over the Constitution and the rights of states versus overreaching federal power. And they have this whole gobbledygook thing cooked up. And Texas bought into that right away. And a lot of the books that come out in Texas, or that get sold in Texas to the Texas School Board, and therefore books that get bought in the rest of the country, buy into this like lost cause myth. They know that the Confederacy lost that war pretty hard. Oh, no. See, that's the thing, Batbird. According to their weird interpretation of history, they did not lose because they lost. They lost because of the devil. And they lost because the North was in league with Satan. And they lost because they cheated. And they lost because... They did not lose because they lacked valor. They did not lose because they were in the wrong. They did not lose because they were outnumbered or outfighted. No. The South had the best fighting men. They had the best generals. They lost because the evils of the North went against the will of God. And I'm serious. That's what a lot of people believe down here. Straying away from history and into U.S. civics for a bit, is there a mechanism for a state to secede? No. And there wasn't even at that time. There is not a legitimate constitutional a way for a state to just go, I quit. So there were provisions under like old versions of the law under a group called the Articles of Confederation. But that was way before the Constitution. That was sort of our first attempt at forming a government. Texas keeps talking about leaving. They would never make it. I'm sorry, Texas, if you're listening to me. You do not have the capacity to make it as an independent country. You take more federal dollars than you put in, which means that if you left, your gross domestic product would drop below the amount of money that you make. You wouldn't make it as a country. And let's just be clear, bud. There would be laws against trading with you, and you would be trade embargoed in about 4 seconds flat. So, sorry, Texas. You would not survive. You just wouldn't. So, in reality, no one left the Union. According to them, they did. Sometimes you think Texas is its own country. Texas has a special provision that a lot of people misinterpret. Texas gets 92% back from what it puts in. Texas gets 92% back from what it puts in last time you looked. Oh, so it's crossed over. It's actually... Okay. Well, I apologize, Texas. You would have slightly... You would have a little bit of money. You would not have most money. So... When did that happen? I wonder when they actually crossed over on that. I mean, just to be honest, I have not looked at the specific GDP on that in a while. The last time I looked at that was maybe when George Bush was in the presidency. Not that Texas doesn't have its fair share of problems and secession is a dumb idea. Well, I mean, it doesn't have enough exports to survive. It would have to import more food. It would have to import probably. Well, it could probably do okay with energy. But it doesn't have the infrastructure. Like it would have to import all of its manufactured goods. It would have to import all of its technology. I don't think that they would be able to handle it. Yeah, like I said, it'd probably be okay with energy. It's got enough wind and oil to probably make it okay. And natural gas. It's got a lot of natural gas. All right. Chemical manufacturing. But where is it going to get the food? The food is the important part. The food. Donde está la food? Comida is the word for food, by the way. I know it. I'm just being a goober. Okay. They are mostly not on the national grid, but that is a problem. Yeah, when we saw that being a problem just a little while ago when it got really cold down there and all of their stuff collapsed. Okie dokie. Let's see. Any other questions? Any other point redemptions? Anybody want to do anything in particular before we go? I think it's about time to go do a raid, and I think I have our raid chosen. If everybody has anything. The Texas state provision always allows Texas to leave the union. Yeah, I think it's 4, right? Can it split into 4 states? Yeah, and that was in the... So Texas was actually an independent country. Got any room for mine? I don't know what you mean, Batbird. Like, oh, do you want to do a point redemption? Yeah, I can do that. Let me go over here to the dashboard. We did choose a another viewer request stream last time. So on Tuesday we did a point redemption one for what happened to the Nazis after World War II. At the end of that, we chose our next viewer request stream on the First Crusade, but I can turn on the pick your own adventure if you want to pick your own adventure. And I have done so, Batbird. So if you would like to spend those points, you may do so now. Didn't someone redeem what's in the news? Yeah, that was the Texas thing. That was the Texas thing about the school board stuff with the Holocaust. And honestly, I really don't know what's going to happen with that, Kelly. I wish I could be... I wish I could predict what's going to happen with that. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a big mess. All right, Batbird, you have chosen the points. Should I assume what you would like, or would you like to state what you would like? Yeah, okay. No problem. So Batbird has redeemed Choose Your Own Adventure again. And based on past conversations that Batbird and I have had, we are going to do another installment of our multi-installment piece of, I don't know, I guess it's an ongoing thing now, but it's sort of like a series of streams. Anyway, we're going to do History of Israel Part 3. So we've already done History of Israel Part 1, which was basically the period of time from the Ottomans up to the foundation of the country of Israel. And then we did History of Israel Part 2, which was basically from that point up until the late 50s, when the leadership changed pretty drastically, when David Ben-Gurion basically decided to finally step down from the government. And next time we will do some really crazy stuff. We'll have the 67 war. We'll have a lot of the material that leads us into a lot of the problems that are still going on today, because Israel is going to occupy a whole bunch of territory. And this is the stuff that we'll cover in our next, not the next one chronologically, but the next time we get to History of Israel is going to be some deep, deep stuff. Last we left our players, David Ben-Gurion retires for the second time. Steve says, okay, I'm back. How many decades did I miss? All of them. Texas school book selection brings out all the cranks and crazies. Yes. To be fair, they probably shouldn't be letting the cranks and crazies choose the school books. That's also true, but this is Texas, and they voted for those people. Well, anyone can review and protest the books being selected. it gets problematic when you start trying to exclude certain groups. That's also true, and I understand the spirit of democracy there, and I don't necessarily ever want to do something that that limits the spirit of democracy, but the practice of democracy sometimes means that if you have a cockamamie idea, you don't get airspace. You can have your freedom of speech all day long, but I don't have to listen to you talk about anything that Alex Jones would ever talk about, just to be honest. I don't want to hear any of that. We're visiting by the puppy again. Anybody want to see the puppy again? I know the answer to that. Everybody loves the puppy. Come here, Kaylee. Come and see me. Hello. Oh, let me get you on the camera. There's the puppy. Hey. What are you doing? You just came to give me some encouragement. Did you think it was a good stream? Oh, did you enjoy talking about the Romans? They used dogs in war. Yeah. They trained mean old battle puppies and let them loose on the bad guys. They usually only did that in the Republic, though, when they didn't have lots of horses. Yeah. You are so rotten. Oh, and you don't stink. Yes, you got a bath. I know. You don't like the bath either, do you? What was that noise? What was that noise? Well, tell me about it. What? Raw. Oh, man. Such a mess. Such a mess. Basically, it'd be great if everybody was reasonable. Yes. Alex Jones is hilarious, but he's also clinically insane. I don't know if I can diagnose him. He's got problems, though. She's wondered why I did not mention Dalmatia. Well, I mentioned Illyrica, which will go on to one day be part of Dalmatia. Or rather, Dalmatia is part of Illyrica, but that's a whole other thing. Texas has a lot of weird idiosyncrasies, and while it's weirdly regressive on some things, it's very progressive on others. This is true. Part of the reason they have such a chokehold on textbooks is because they have a progressive school funding structure. Yeah, it is the money. Reasonable is a relatively low bar. It's a shame we can't reach it. Steve, that's very true. That is very true. All right. I think it's time for us to go do a raid. We've been on now for over 2 hours. That's usually way past time. So we're going to go raid my buddy Studio Dogby. We tried to raid him on Tuesday, and he jumped stream on us before we were able to raid. Did we not just have a history lesson? Reasonable seems to be historically high bar. Yeah, Steve, I know you stream for like 8 hours a day, but that's also part of your job. I spent my 8 hours today doing teaching in another location, not on stream. So for your information, I mentioned in TKF you don't show as streaming right now. Oh, wow. I just found out you need to connect your Twitch with Discord, so it shows you as streaming in the Knowledge Foundation Discord, so you can check it. Okay, thank you. Just stream your classes. No, I can't do that. That would be all sorts of FERPA violation, and I cannot do that. Okay, anyway, our battle cry is adventure. When we get in Doggaby's room, please show Doggaby some love. D is a great dude. He is a really cool artist and has a really good talent. So adventure, lots of adventure hats. Otherwise, I will see everybody next week. Next scheduled stream is Thursday. We'll start a new phase, and I'll see you then.